Hello, my name is Scott Eric Olivier, and I'm here today to talk to you about this device I've created called PEDALpUNK. PEDALpUNK is an interface that sits between your computer and any guitar effects pedal ever made, of which now there are over 30,000 available. I made this product over a period of about a decade, maybe a little longer actually, because I was sort of frustrated that there was no common ground between these large-scale mixing consoles and super vibey guitar pedals. I also wanted to make something that would not only create a conduit between the two worlds, but it had to have certain certain points about it had to be just right as far as the sonics go and as far as the compatibility with other pieces went. So I started doing this in the mid-90s. I lived in Seattle and I was mixing a lot of records that were just analog at the time. I had different mixers, different tape machines, and there was always a problem with levels. What normally will happen is the tape machine and a mixing console, or even just a computer nowadays, is a balanced signal that lives in a certain environment that has a much hotter output than a guitar pedal wants to see. Conversely, a guitar pedal will output only a certain amount of gain because it's designed to be plugged into either another pedal or a guitar amplifier, which has a much different input impedance. So if you can imagine two pipes, the mixer, tape machine, computer wall being a very large pipe with a lot of volume in it, and a guitar cable, which is actually a much smaller pipe. What's happening is that PEDALpUNK creates an interface between the large pipe with lots of signal coming in and a small pipe, which is what a guitar pedal wants to see. So you may say, well, that's great, but there are other things that do that. And indeed there are a few things that do that. However, what we've done is we created a box that makes the pedals think that they're listening to a guitar player and not a computer. And conversely, and this is the more difficult thing to achieve, is when you come back out of your pedals and you want to go into your recording, be it your console, be it a two-channel interface that goes right in your computer, the problem is there's not enough level. So if you plug it in, if you were to plug in your guitar pedal straight into your interface, you would never have enough level to boost it up to get a healthy level inside your computer. So it'd be very weak. So what we've done is we've created two gain stages inside the PEDALpUNK. One is a transformer that balances going into the pedals, and the other contains an amplifier circuit which also has an overdrive to go back into your mixing console, straight into your computer, however it is you have your world set up. Another thing that I wanted to do is I'm a very picky guitar player and I'm a very picky engineer, so I noticed that some really amazing things happen, especially with fuzz pedals and your older echoes and delays, things that have a ton of vibe to them. And that is, when you're playing guitar, if you have your amp cranked up and you have your pedals cranked up, basically a lot of people just turn your guitar on 10 and go, and that's fine. That's actually, it sounds like it's supposed to sound at that point. But a really amazing thing happens when you back off on the volume of your guitar, because what happens is your pedals get starved for signal as the impedance rises, and what they do at that point is they start to think, well, hey, I need more level, and they create really, really great harmonics. There's a lot of extra great content that can add grit to your existing mixes. It's beautiful on drums, beautiful on bass. It's actually really beautiful on acoustic guitars and cymbals as well. So to achieve that, what we did is we created the knob in the middle, which is focus. Now, focus is normally a little misunderstood because it's kind of a voodoo subject. But the main point of it is this. If you have many, many pedals on a pedal board and they're not going through loops, just a standard pedal board. Let's say I brought 6 or 7 pedals with me. If I plug them all in, what's happening is every time I go through them, whether they're buffered or not, it's degrading the signal. So what focus does is, as you dial it counterclockwise, it changes the input impedance to create a different sound. Now, if your pedals are buffered, which most are, you will not hear that much difference in the sound depending on the type of pedal. There are some pedals where you will hear no sound if you change the focus. However, if you stack many of them in a row and you start to dial this in different ways, it will create a lot more and different harmonic content. And you'll be able to actually dial more things in than you were without it. It's amazing on vintage fuzz pedals, Fuzz Face, Mosrite, Super Fuzz, because those are very, very simple circuits, and they don't have a buffer, which is great. That's what I use them for, mostly on drums, and I'll give you some demos in a second. So another thing that focus is great for is if you are trying to get a little bit less of an obtrusive sound and you want it to be a little softer, it can definitely soften things up. So once again, let me recap really quickly. What these do is they enable your guitar pedals, any guitar pedals that you have, any ever made actually, to live inside your DAW. Doesn't matter, Pro Tools, Ableton, Reason, Logic, Reaper, DP, any of them it works with. Basically, this creates a conduit so they can either be on your effects send and returns or your inserts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play just a guitar, bass, drums mix, and I'm going to go through some different things. I'll play it for a minute, and then I'll turn the volume down, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing so you can hear how it's changing the sound. And all the while, what we're doing is that we have these pedals coming back on different faders within. I happen to be using Pro Tools today. I also use Ableton Live and Logic quite often. So you'll see me messing with faders here. Essentially all I'm doing is muting, soloing, and changing level of the PEDALpUNK return. I just want to stress that you don't need an amazing vintage console to use this. It's great if you do. I happen to love these consoles, my favorite console ever made. But again, it's not necessary. So okay, I'll just play some stuff now. Guitar, bass, drums mix with nothing on it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use these pedals, which is a tone-free Rodentia, which is a fuzz. And I have an S-Tube Screamer, classic pedal, everyone has these. I'm going to solo the bass, let you hear the bass just by itself. So that's our recorded bass signal, okay? It sounds great, I love it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in the PEDALpUNK. It adds a lot of really great harmonics because of the transformers. Next I'll add in this Rodentia, which is a fuzz. less pedal pump, I just turn it up without having to touch these controls. This here is just the overdriven bass by itself. So we can get pretty crazy. Again, you can turn down the return if it's too loud on your computer. You can tame it. When we turn down focus, especially on these fuzz pedals, what happens is the fuzz gets thicker. So I'll bring it up against the bass again. And when you put it back in the mix, the bass all of a sudden has much more presence than it did. So I'll cut the pedal punk down now. Bass is a lot of good. Great, so there's two things there. I'll try this other pedal, which is a tube screamer. It's a milder overdrive. I actually like to use this a lot on snare drums and vocals. What's going on here is we're creating a lot of out-of-the-box depth that plugins don't give us. I love plugins. I love pretty much all gear, even if it sounds strange, because there's always a use for it. The great thing about what happens when you use pedals is you're introducing something that's truly unique, because computers as we know them, as we can buy them, just aren't there yet as far as the non-linearity of these types of distortions. That's something that I'll get into in blogs coming up, video blogs and writing as well, for people who want to know more particularly what I'm talking about. But suffice to say, at least all of the pedal plugins that I've heard don't sound like, and I don't want to use the term "don't sound as good" because that's to each his own. But to my ear, they don't give me what these do. So I'm gonna right now take these same effects and put them on the snare drum instead of the bass, and I could do that pretty quickly. Great, so now we're going to distort the snare drum by itself. This is just the top snare mic. So I'm blending in the pedal pump. To add this to the bottom instead, the bottom snare mic. There's a lot more grit on that. Bottom snare mic is obviously looking up and your top snare mic is down. So in this recording, the bottom snare mic polarity was filled. The great thing about PEDALpUNK is it has a polarity button. So if it sounds kind of thin now, you press that in, you get a whole different character of fuzz. So this is just the snare mics by themselves. started with, which was that. So send, saturate the transformer inside, return at op amp flipping. And we'll bring it back on the stop. Without pedal pump. All of a sudden you have this tremendous attitude that's only coming from pedal pump. What I'll do now is I'll take these pedals out completely so you can see that obviously there's nothing up my sleeve, so to speak. Let's mute these guys. Alright, so one cable, plugging it in to itself. Play back. Alright, so this is nominal gain. Unity gain, and I'll solo just the pedal pump. This is just our snare drum alone, right? So we'll start dialing this up because I'd like to get some more attitude. And for those really astute listeners, that snare mic has a lot of kick drum in it on purpose. I did a very, very like Led Zeppelin-ish 3 mic technique on this because I wanted that open ringing sound. All we're listening to now is a pedal pump. And as I crank up the return, a lot of attitude. There's just no way that I know, after doing this for 30 years, to get that type of sonic attitude out of a plug-in. Again, some of them are really amazing, and it's a whole different vibe. And I really like this transformer plug-in. The transformer sound, not plug-in. When I dial the focus back, cymbals get darker. So I'll fade back into music. Now I'm going to take the pedal pump away. Amazing how much it moves. Just one channel. Alright, great. So we've heard what it does on the rock stuff. What I want to do now is I'm going to plug back in these pedals. From the console comes into the pedal pump, out of the send, into the first pedal, out of the last pedal, back into return. We'll set these guys send and return at 12 o'clock for a unity gain. Focus is totally clockwise. And we'll go and do some 2-track processing, left and right. That was just a mono signal. Now I'm going to use 2 pedal punks. Very simple. I have them in dual mono setup, just coming back left, right on the console right here, so that I can solo them, fade them up or down. I really want to stress that while I love these consoles, their solid state logic makes my favorite console ever. You do not need a console to use this device at all. We're here today because it's a lot easier to mix with a console. You can fade things in and out a lot more quickly. But plugging this straight into your whatever DAW workstation you have, you'll get the same sound, except obviously you'll lose the sound of the console, which is a glorious thing. But we have it set up really nominally. There's no equalization, there's no compression going on whatsoever on the console. It's just coming in line from Pro Tools, going straight out. No tricks, in other words. So okay, I'll go to something on our playlist that is basically just mini moog and drums. I recorded this 2 weeks ago, just in my studio in Los Angeles. Very simple. Again, 3 mics on the drums and a mini Moog. So I'll let you hear what it sounds like, and we will be able to do that here. Left, right. This is the left channel, this is the right channel. They're both set up flat. All the pedals are off. So what you're hearing now is PEDALpUNK muted. Just the drums and mini Moog that I recorded. Start doing some processing with these guys. It's pretty loud. Side. It's pretty rough. Come down on this. This is kind of a heavy distortion. I don't like it as much. What you're hearing now is just PEDALpUNK. Adds so much clarity. Low end. So I'll back these guys off for unity gain. Come to this tube screamer. I'm just looking for a little bit of grit. Alright, so then I'm going to blend in the track. And a little faciness, so I'm going to change the polarity here. Much better. I'll fade down on the effects. But to me, it's a bit much. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug the PEDALpUNK into itself, because I think that's the sound I'm really looking for. So again, just in like that. Unmute it. That's it. Just PEDALpUNK. Sounds really good with the focus back down. A little bit of clipping. Now I'll bring in the other drums, the regular drums, that's wrong. Great, so I got what I'm after on here. Next time I'll start using the other side to get some crazy effects. Got a ring modulator here. What I'm doing is I'm going to time it with a tremolo. just the PEDALpUNK by itself. I'll bring in the original track. Alright, so as you can see, we could go on like this forever. My point being that you can take any pedal. This pedal I happen to love. It costs $19. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it, I think, at Target now even for $19, $25, $29. Things like this, these little distortion pedals, these little vibe pedals, will add so much more to what you're already doing than you realize. And PEDALpUNK is the gateway to being able to do that. Now, again, you don't need any pedals to get really a lot of sounds, over a dozen sounds out of PEDALpUNK, depending on how hard you're hitting it from your computer, how hard you're hitting back with your computer with the return knob. And the connectability is super easy. We have a balanced side, we have an unbalanced side. And this side literally makes your computer think that these pedals are rack gear, balanced rack gear. And this side makes your pedals think that they're listening to a guitar and not a computer. So if you have tracks that you've already cut and you want to add effects afterwards with your pedals, that's one of the reasons I created it in the first place. Because if you're using a person might come in that has a tone that they're very used to, they won't change it, but later on in the mix they might say, hey, I would maybe like a little more overdrive in that part of the song. Well, you can do that now without having to re-record. You may say, well, I can do that if I reamp, but that's not true, because if you reamp with a already distorted sound, anything other than just a plain DI sound, you will never get the same tone again. It's impossible. You may get something that you like, who knows? But again, that's only 1/3 of the scenario, the reamp portion. So I want to thank you for sticking around today. It's been great. It's amazing how time flies. I feel like I could sit here for 3 hours and go on. But that would probably get boring for a lot of folks. So I think what I'll do is I'll continue this at some point in my studio in Los Angeles. And we'll get more in depth, just piece by piece. I'll be able to go through a lot of different pedals, show things a lot more deeply with oscilloscope and things like that. But as far as it being just sort of a broad stroke for what PEDALpUNK does, I think that it's pretty evident that using gear that you probably already own, you can already get unlimited more sounds for remixing, for writing, sparking creativity, just anything that will get you out of the box so that you will start collaborating more. Even, and this might sound kind of funny, but when you are able to touch things, when you're able to touch knobs, there's a certain sort of inner collaboration that happens that you're not going to get when you're mixing with a mouse. Again, not bagging on digital anything. I love digital. I use tons of plugins. I use whatever. But when something is tactile and you can interact with it and you can turn it on or off with the beat, or overdrive it for certain parts in the song, it's so much more fun to create that way. And when you're done, it's almost like a painting instead of just listening to a bunch of static moves that you've made where your faders and EQs all snap into place. This is another tool to help you get what is in your head out of your head and out there so people can listen. Thanks so much for hanging around. I'd like to thank Engine Room Audio for hosting this with their amazing solid state Logic 4000 G Plus console. I'd like to thank the Syndicate. I'd like to thank my partners at SSB Technologies who have made this a reality, and Sonic Scoop, as well as LiveStream. We've been doing this with one single Mevo camera. Amazing unit. I was blown away today when I saw what it can do, and I'm told these will be available very soon. So please have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to doing this again very soon.